Hello friends, and welcome to Escaping the Mouse with your host, me, Breck Roll. Alright, I've got another
That's Not How It's Done
vlog for today. If you noticed, the frequency of these has reduced a lot in the last couple months, and that's primarily because, you know, I've been in this place now, I've discovered where all the problems are, and I've fixed most of them. But something came up in the last week that I wasn't aware of, and that was because this apartment actually has 3 bathrooms, but since I don't need 3 bathrooms, I don't use the 3rd one. But when Jordan was here last week, he was using that bathroom and he discovered a problem with the shower. For those of you who are familiar with the shower bathtubs that also have like a shower attachment, and they're the ones that have the 3 knobs, you have a hot water and a cold water and then a knob in the middle that diverts the water from the faucet up to the shower head. Jordan would report that when he would take a shower and try and divert water up to the shower head, it wouldn't completely shut off the water to the faucet. And so he got like no pressure coming out of the shower head. And my original instinct on that was to call the maintenance crew in the apartment, have them deal with it. But since they don't really have the best history of knowing what's going on, you know, I was reluctant to do that. I also didn't want to do it while Jordan was here, because there's kind of limits on how many pets I can have here. The apartment knows about bite and nibble, but where I'm only technically supposed to have 2 pets per tenant. And so bringing Jaw in here, I just didn't want to create the problem of the handyman coming in here and say, oh wait, there's a dog in here too. So I decided I was going to wait until after Jordan left to deal with this. And I got up this morning and I started thinking about that, and while I've never actually taken apart one of these diverter systems, you know, the principle is pretty sound and pretty basic, and it seemed to me that I could probably figure this out on my own. So I decided to go up and take a look at this, and I think we're going to try and replace that diverter. I don't think it sounds like a really big task, but I'm going to go up and take a look at this thing now and see if I can figure out what's wrong. Maybe it's just something I can fix. So let's get going on that. Alright, the basic operation of these things are pretty simple. What you have is you have hot and cold water coming up through pipes behind the wall here. Hot water goes into this valve, cold water goes into this valve, and when the valve is opened up, the water is allowed to go to this central, what they call the diverter. And when the diverter is in one position, the water comes out of the faucet below, and when it's in the other position, the water comes out of the shower head. But when you turn the water on, like I said, the water should come out of, when the diverter is in one position, the water will come out of the faucet below. And then when you flip the diverter to the other position, the water starts coming out of the shower head up top. But see, it's also supposed to stop coming out of here. And because so much of the water is coming out of the faucet below, we have literally little or no pressure coming out of the shower head above. So clearly what's going on is that this diverter valve in here is bad. It's either corroded up and it's not properly making the connection to divert the water, or it's just defective and has to be replaced. So let's open it up and take a look at this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the handle off of this, and there's just a little Phillips screw that holds that on. So I'm going to unscrew that, pull the handle off. And then this part here unscrews. This is just to cover up all the ugly stuff underneath it. And actually, the little plastic piece is supposed to come off too. So I'm going to actually grab a hold of that, so I don't want to have to sit and untwist all across this little plastic piece. I'll show you that in a second here when I get into it. Because there's actually 2 pieces to this. There's this little plastic piece in the middle that acts as a gasket and just kind of acts as a spacer, so you can get this piece to go flush against the wall. And if I didn't remove this, then I'd end up untwisting this all the way to the end of this. So it was just easier to grab a hold of this and unrelease it. At which point I'm left with this piece here. And this is the diverter itself. This is the thing that needs to be replaced. And so I'm just going to use my handy dandy crescent wrench here, and I'm going to grab a hold of this and untwist it. A little bit corroded in there, so you know, certain points it can be hand twisted, other points it doesn't. This isn't one of those things you have to shut the water off for. If I were going to take one of these valves off, I'd have to shut the water off. But since this is basically the source of the water, if both of these valves are closed, then there is no water going to this center valve. Alright, so this is the piece we're talking about right here. And what basically happens is when you open up the valve, this little piece here goes up and down, and it either closes up on this little gasket right here, or this piece pushes out and it closes up onto the other, onto a piece of pipe inside the wall there. And depending on which way it goes, you end up with you know, your water going either to the faucet or to the shower head. And since I think the problem was probably that this piece here is just all corroded and it's kind of messed up, and this brass piece is all kind of corroded, I think it's probably just going to be easier to replace this thing. So here we go to Home Depot. Because you know how much I hate to go to Home Depot. Alright, so as I said before, I don't really know a whole lot about these things, so I actually started out by just asking a guy in the department, and he walked right to this thing and says, yep, this is exactly what you need, so that's what we're gonna get. Alright, so here's the replacement piece, cost all of 10 bucks, so yeah, it's definitely gonna be an advantage to doing that and doing it right. Let's install it. Alright, now before we go too much further, I want to actually test to make sure this works before we get too much more into this. Alright, so that's one direction. And we got the shower head working and the faucet is off. So yeah, I think that's it. So let's button this thing back up. Now I noticed a little bit when I was testing it before that there was water squirting out of here when I turned it on a little bit. But I just tightened up this little screw right here and now we're good to go. That doesn't happen anymore. So back to buttoning it up again. Alright, first thing we want to do is put this thing back on. It's just going to screw that all the way down. I'm going to grab onto the plastic piece and drive that all the way home, and then just kind of twist the shield here until it kind of makes contact with the tile work. Then all I got to do is put the knob back on, reattach the screw, and we're back in business. Next time Jordan comes, he'll have a shower that works properly. I'm sure he'll be happy about that. Alright, now that we got it all buttoned up again here, let's do one more test. And no water coming out of the shower head, that's good. Then when we switch the valve, water shuts off there, and it's all coming out of the shower head. That's the way that's supposed to work. So as you can see, that wasn't a terribly difficult job to do, and next time Jordan comes out, he'll have a fully functioning shower to work with. It wasn't a really difficult thing to do, and compared to the alternatives, like calling the maintenance crew and having them do it, which would have taken them 6 months to get here, and they wouldn't have done it right, and I would have had a bigger mess than when I started with. Or if I called a real plumber, it would have been 150 bucks to get them to just come out and look at it, $125 an hour for labor, and they'd mark up the parts 250%. Instead, I did it myself. It took about 30 minutes. I got the part for 10 bucks, and now I know it works right. So, you know what? That's That's the advantage of being able to do things like this yourself. A lot of simple repairs around the house just aren't really that complicated if you don't allow it to intimidate you. So anyway, I hope you found this amusing and maybe slightly informative. That's all that I have for today. Thank you as always for watching, and I will see you next time on Escaping the Mouse. Good night.